Hello again, everyone. I'm going to be making videos pretty consistently through Thanksgiving with the holiday. I figured it'd be a good time to catch up on some. I have a bunch of donation videos to catch up on. So here's the first one. Remember, if you do make a contribution of any amount to the PayPal link in the description box and you want your story made into a video, you go right to the top of the list. Hi, Ali. My name is, I'm going to leave it out. I am Portuguese. I am a Portuguese writer living in Brussels. Oof, Brussels got problems right now. I was in contact with you about a year and a half ago, and you did a video about me called Narcissists Are Animals Who Turn on Their Young. I have been watching the new versions of your videos and gathering the courage to try and tell you a part of my story that I need feedback on. I think it would help me out a lot, as all your videos so far. They help me express my rage, the one I haven't been able to access for so many years. Just made a donation through PayPal. Been thinking for weeks now about ways to put this, so here it goes. My mother is an overt narc, a bully. She used to beat me when I was a child and threatened me not to tell anyone. When I was old enough to defend myself, about 11 or 12 years old, that's when the beating slowed down and the psychological aggression started. She would call me a whore, not sporadically, but daily. And that'll happen. You know, they will change. A physically abusive narcissist as you get older, abusive parental narcissist will change their tactics to more psychological. However, the propensity to throw down and start throwing fists are always going to be there throughout their lives, as you've heard in so many stories of I've witnessed. Personally, there's always the chance where things are going to become physical. And these are only two examples of the many horrible things she would do. I had no problem cutting all contact with her 6 years ago. It was clear to me that she was pure evil, which was easier compared to my dad. I suppose my dad tried to make me the golden child when I was a little girl. I remember how he showed me love and played with me. How we built a tent in my room together. We would sing while I rode a wooden horse. We would play with these small Snoopy toys. So probably already there's jealousy because you're taking your father's attention away from your mother because your mother's probably a giant child. Once when we were playing with these toys, I started crying for no apparent reason. I was about 5. It was a happy moment. There should be no reason to cry. The only explanation in my head at that point was that he was being such a tender dad. I now understand that I was crying because he was such a manipulative, covert narc, an angel in one hour, a beast in the other. And I was confused and didn't know what to believe. He would slap me occasionally and scream at me, then be a wonderful dad. Then the sexual inappropriateness started. He would come with me as I was going to bed and lay on top of me, suffocate me. I believe he did nothing sexual, but I hated it. My mom was in the living room and could hear me as I would scream for him to stop. One day he urged me and my little brother to take off our clothes. We were jumping up and down in the bed, and he said, "Let's take some pictures so you guys can remember how your bodies were as children." Well, that's pretty sexual. We did, but it was awkward and uncomfortable. At a point, he told me to lay on my back and take a picture with my legs spread open to the camera. I was about 8 years old. I refused, and then he said, "Okay, you take the picture with your legs spread open with a magazine to cover your private parts." This was never a secret or anything. The pictures were in a very accessible drawer in a little study of our house. They were a big source of shame to me. As I'm writing this, I am shaking, my head is spinning, and my feet are sweating. Can't believe this is going to be read by hundreds of people, but I don't care. It's no shame of mine. It's not my fault, and for me, a step further in defeating the narc is to talk about this and expose this as the abuse that was made upon me. You can totally use my real name. My dad also used to walk around naked in the house, talk about sex, and touch me inappropriately, grab my ass and push me with a finger in the middle of it when I was going up the stairs, claiming I was not going fast enough. Was a favorite. When I grew up, this became a big joke, and he would make fun of me as he would touch my leg and he would make squeaky sounds, imitating my voice and saying, no one can touch her. He disgusted me. I never kissed him or hugged him voluntarily. To this day, he complains about how when I have to kiss him by courtesy, as a greeting, for example, I always do it super fast and coldly. I guess inside I'm afraid that any demonstration of affection from my part can be interpreted sexually by him. Gross. I assume that is where all the "you're a whore" thing came as regards to my mom. She sensed something sexual was going on and was jealous of me. That's exactly what was going on. That's exactly what was going on. Your mother was jealous of the attention of her own daughter. Okay, not even caring that it's an inappropriate sexual relationship, whether or not there was actual sexual contact going on. In your father's mind, there was. And that's what your mother was cluing in on. And that's why your mother's calling you a whore. And look, every girl in my life was a whore to my mother, who was sexually aggressive and touched me and all that shit. My mother and her two sisters were whores with her mother. It's a cycle thing. It's this crazy part of narcissism where these narcissistic mothers see their mothers or their sons who they want to have sex with as almost as either, with the daughters it's competition, as boys it's the women in their lives are competition. When I entered my teens, my father started bullying me and making fun of me. I guess he didn't get over the fact that I was no longer his to play with anymore. Needless to say, he never defended me from my mother's attacks. She would read my diaries, throw things, scream endlessly. One day she called a friend of mine and left a message on her voicemail calling her a whore. This was a big joke also. Yeah, they love that whore word. Up to this day, I am still terrified that my father might have done more stuff to me and I might have forgotten about it. I began therapy 3 or 4 years ago when I did having suicidal thoughts because of it. I know he didn't full-on rape me because I bled when I lost my virginity. And I always ask myself, is the picture thing such a big deal? Yes. 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 In this country, we have a spokesman, Jared from Subway, this guy who lost all this weight. Subway, I don't know if you have them in Brussels, is a sandwich place. Okay, he just got 15 years. Okay, and primarily what took him down was pictures, but he did have sex with children as well. But these days, pictures is a big deal. They are charging now children in this country, teenagers, with sending nude selfies of each other with child pornography, even though they're both underage. That's how serious it's gotten. That is also kind of why I am writing about it in this email. I don't know if it's all in my head, but despite the beatings, the name calling, the whatnots, the picture incident is the most traumatic and disgusting thing I can remember experiencing. Is this normal? Is this sexual abuse, or just a crazy moment from an unconscious parent who didn't know how to govern his life anyway? Well, yes, it is. No, it's not normal. Yes, it is sexual abuse. And it's not an unconscious person because he kept the friggin' pictures in the drawer for years and then joked about it. Is he unconscious to his own behavior? I doubt it. I doubt it. He knows this is wrong. When my dad and mother divorced, I was 19 and he started showering me with money and gifts. I had been over-controlled for ages, but was basically allowed to do whatever I wanted now. I started sniffing cocaine and popping ecstasy every weekend, sleeping around, disappearing for days. My life was not my own. I was a gifted writer and they had brainwashed me into doing law school. I was living a lie, and almost all my friends were narcs. When I finished my degree, my father helped me pay for a trip to South America. I traveled for a year and worked in France and South America. He let me take his golden credit card. I didn't splurge because I was always cognizant about money. But if I was an abuser, I could have abused. I did a lot of self-discovery, but also a lot of drugs. I guess at I guess at a point I did so much coke and ecstasy I could have died. The drug taking stopped when I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer. Big surprise. I was living in Amsterdam and dropped off my master's degree to work in a hotel and become a writer. My father never supported this until he saw that I was getting kind of popular and there was something in it for him. I came back to Portugal and worked as a writer, creative writing teacher, and proofreader. I won an award and things were going somewhere, but I was constantly broke, in part because of the crisis in Portugal. I had to ask my father for money, and this drove me insane. I was his bitch again, and subject to his passive-aggressive behavior, making fun of me, demeaning me, the manipulative victimization when I would start to rebel. Well, you're an adult. You shouldn't be rebelling as an adult. It's not rebelling. It's standing up for yourself when you're an adult. So you should forget that. Your father sounds a lot like my father. Extreme sexual pervert, loves to make fun of you, loves to humiliate you, demean you, denigrate you. You know, it's the same thing. And really what it is your father views you as property. You're property to him. You're there to do whatever he wants. Your body is his. Your mind is his. Your talents are his. It doesn't matter. I decided to change countries, live in Brussels now, and basically have two careers. One in tourism, which is something that I like and makes me have a decent and humane life quality, and my writing, which is what I love. Again, my father never supported this decision and tried to convince me to just come back to Portugal and go back to my studies. I am 31. While I am frustrated that I cannot live my dream full time anymore, I am relieved that I own my own life financially, and this gives me courage not to be in denial about my dad anymore and see the truth, the abuse as what it is, and break free from it, to become an individual and not just a puppet for him to play and show around. For years, I tried to make excuses for his behavior and think my mother was the only abuser. I guess I had such a strong connection to him. I thought I was so dependent on his money that I simply couldn't face that I was living a big lie. Yeah, we hang in there for money because they make us believe we can't live without them. You know, again, like for years I thought my father was the good one and I didn't realize that it was my father actually pulling the strings the whole time, which is really your father's more to blame than your mother is, because your father's the one doing all the inappropriate behavior. He knows how your mother's reacting to it. So not only is he fucking you up, he's fucking with your mother, and she's a narcissist too, and she doesn't know how to handle it. And so not only does he fuck you over himself, when your mother attacks you, he lets her attack you, so he fucks you over on both sides. And the whole time, he's the one pulling the strings, which is what I found. You know, you always got to get to where the core of the issue is. And the core of your issue here is your sexual abuse and the inappropriate attention your father was giving to you. That's what set your mother off, made your mother jealous of you, wrongly on her part, but he did nothing to stop it. So not only did he cause the abuse you and screw you up just on the sexual abuse side, but he allowed your mother to abuse you and did nothing about it. And the root of it all is him and his abuse. I own my life financially, and this gives me courage not to be in denial about my dad anymore and see the truth. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I now see my father as the manipulative, covert narc that he is, and I am sure about his sexual thing, and I am not sure about his sexual thing, but maybe you could help me with figuring that out. No, that's real. That is absolutely real. You don't just pull that out of whole cloth. Your father's the root. Your father, your mother's bad. obviously, because she's calling you a whore and doing what she's doing with your friends. Okay, but it's all the root of it is what is the cause, and the cause is your father's abuse that he perpetrated on you, and then he ignored your mother's abuse on him that he was causing. I am low contact with him and seriously thinking about going no contact. Don't think about it, do it. I have been able to make small victories for myself. For example, I'm going to Portugal for Christmas, but I am not staying at his house. I rented a room for myself and I can visit whomever I want, when I want, if I want now. So as I said, I'm thinking about going no contact, but every time I do, I think about those moments in my childhood, about how my dad could be a tender man sometimes. The playing, the singing, the drawing together. I don't know if you've ever experienced this with your parents. Yeah, it's called grooming. That's what that's what child molesters do. They don't just come out and start molesting children. They groom them. That's where the old adage, the guy in the pervert in the ice cream truck, the guy offering candy. It's grooming. The Little League coach. There's a coach that's in prison now who was a defensive coordinator for Penn State football, where he was running these youth groups where he was great with these kids. Okay? Except when he was having sex with these 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds in the shower. And that's even what the kids say. If you look up Jerry Sandusky and look at what his victims have said, he ruined his life, okay? But the thing about him was, why they had so much confusion was, when he wasn't raping them, he was a great guy. And that's just called grooming your victim. That's all your father's doing, was grooming you. And that's what you're confusing. That's what all child molesters do. That's what all sexual predators do. They groom their victims. It makes me very sad and guilty emotionally. How should I get over this? With my mom, there's simply no problem there. She was always an insane bitch, much like my mother. But how should I get over all these memories from your childhood with my dad and the fact that I see he has tender moments up to this day? The tender moments aren't real. The tender moments are in order to groom you. Okay, because he's still doing it. He hasn't changed one iota. He hasn't changed one bit. He's still grooming you. He's still that same perverted narcissist that he's always been. The niceness of the narcissistic pervert is a grooming tactic. That's all it is. It's not real. I guess there are two big questions in this video then. Congrats on your channel and lots of love for you and your wife. I was very touched by the fact that you said in the video that we are your family. In a way, this community has been a family I found online. Lots of peace, Teresa or Teresa. Okay. Quite simply, you are still caught up in your childhood sexual abuse, where you are still haven't really seen your father for what he's actually done to you. Okay. The niceness of the narcissistic pervert is nothing more than a grooming tactic. It's not real. It's not real. If he was just this fucking molesting son of a bitch at all times, okay, one of two things would either happen. Either you would be so traumatized at all times, if he was just this evil at all times, raping, you would be so traumatized you wouldn't be able to go outside, and somebody from the outside, like, this kid is screwed up. We got to see what the deal is in here. Okay, that's first. Okay, the second would be, okay, if he was this, he wouldn't be able to let you out of his sight. Okay, you would tell on him. You would eventually tell somebody on him if it was that bad. Okay, the first is probably more likely that somebody would clue in on it. Okay, because you would be so traumatized at all times that you wouldn't be able to function in society whatsoever. So that's where the niceness comes in. That's where the need to keep you confused and to kind of keep you semi-normal. Okay, or he wouldn't be able to let you out of his sight. Otherwise, you'd just be a prisoner locked up in his house, and then he'd have to explain where his kid is. Okay, and the second and the much less likely is that you would go running screaming out of the house at some point and just tell the story. Because if he was always a son of a bitch at all times, you would just be able to say, no, he's just been a son of a bitch at all times, and it would be much easier for you to identify it. That's what the grooming is, to confuse you, to keep you questioning whether or not this happened. This absolutely happened to you. So thank you for your donation. Thank you for sharing this story. Um, I know it's probably going to help a lot of people. I hope you get back to your writing full time. I know how difficult that is based on the type of childhood you had, the type of parents you had. You know, the fact that you've been able to make breakaway moments, to move to different countries, to, to do things, to separate yourself. You've made great strides. You need to cut this off clean at this point, because your father should probably have been in prison a long time ago. A long time ago. He's made his bed. Let the motherfucker lie in it. Let him lie in it and let him die alone, because that's what he deserves. That's what he deserves. And here's my final question to you, Teresa. You're only 31. If you find somebody and get married, or you decide to have a child, a daughter like you, would you let their daughter around them? So why would you go around them? Ever? And that's something that a lot of you should ask. Take yourselves out of the equation and replace you with your child and say, would I allow my child around this person alone? And if the answer is fuck no, then what are we really talking about at this point? The answer is right in front of you. You just got to face what the truth is. So thank you again for the story. I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who's watched. Any comments, please put them in the comment thread. Any words of advice. And again, if you enjoy this channel, please consider making a contribution to the PayPal link in the donation box. And remember, a contribution of any size, if you want your story made into a video, it goes right to the top of the list. This is Ollie Matthews. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again shortly. Bye.